because there was no Judy Garland. She was a construct. She was never a person. She was never a child.
The one thing that Judy Garland did have was an astonishing talent, even at the tender age of 5.
It was quite clear that the Gum sisters, as they were known, were really one little tiny Gum. Baby Gum, as she was known. And after a while, it was clear that Baby Gum was going to be the meal ticket of the entire family.
But the family was a fiction. It was well known that Frank was a homosexual. Despite his attempts to lead a family lifestyle, Ethel, by most accounts, treated her husband with utter contempt.
When she found out that her husband was homosexual, she wasn't able to resolve that in a way that kept the family life stable. And that stability is pretty important for later development.
Frank and Ethel Gum were constantly splitting up and getting back together again. This dysfunctional family environment was already distorting young Judy's fledgling understanding of relationships.
So rather than learning about marriage as being a supportive and loving and respectful union, she learns the kind of stress that kind of conflict would bring up.
In the stormy Gum family, Judy's father was her only anchor, and she adored him. But while he protected her from her mother and the outside world, he was unable to provide any example of physical intimacy.
Her later relationships were founded very much on this same kind of career engagement and partnership.
Frank Gum would become the model for many of the men in his daughter's life. Despite the problems at home, Ethel's career plans were paying off. In 1932, at the age of 10, Judy got her first write-up in a national paper.
Selling end of the trio is the 10-year-old kid sister with a pip of a low-down voice. Kid stopped the show.
Judy's 2 older sisters eventually left the trio. The 3 would never be close again. George Jessel, a veteran vaudeville performer, saw potential stardom. He advised Ethel to change her daughter's name and suggested the surname of entertainment critic Robert Garland. That year, Hoagie Carmichael had a hit song called Judy. And the 13-year-old was reborn as Judy Garland. A product of her mother's tireless ambition, a creation.
Her ambition was that Judy would be a star, and so she pushed relentlessly without giving her a sense of knowing herself as a person other than as a performer.
This simple change of name marked only the beginning of a transformation that would thrust the little girl from Minnesota onto the world's biggest stage. She was about to join the MGM Motion Picture Fantasy Factory, from where her phenomenal talent would rocket her to stardom, but from where she would also begin the long descent into the darkness of addiction. In the 1930s, the MGM movie studio was the biggest game in town. Its maze of sound stages and backlots churned out one feature film a week. An empire ruled by the iron fist of Louis B. Mayer, the most powerful man in Hollywood.
Louis B. Mayer thought of Judy Garland as a commodity, a thing, not a person, and he made a deal with her mother for this thing that he contracted.
On the 13th of September 1935, the 13-year-old Judy Garland signed a 7-year contract. Her starting pay of $100 a week was a fortune in those days.
The mother got the money. Of course, Judy was underage.
And once again, the 13-year-old had no control over what she wanted to do.
Louis B. Mayer never addressed a civil word to her as long as he knew her. Neither did his partner in crime, her mother Ethel.
Only her father, Frank Gumm, was there to offer love and support. But shortly after she signed to MGM, he died suddenly from spinal meningitis. Judy was devastated. Her future relationships with men would all eerily echo the memory of her father.
She never got a chance to work through her feelings of loss about him, her feelings of disappointment, sense of betrayal, because he was the one who protected her.
Judy never for the rest of her life said anything bad about her father, although she really hated her mother with extremely good reason.
My mother was truly a stage mother, a mean one, wasn't she? Well, you didn't know her, thank goodness. But she used to, she was very jealous because she had absolutely no talent.
MGM soon teamed her up with veteran child actor Mickey Rooney, a collaboration he described as a happy time in both their careers.
Well, we were great friends, and we knew each other's routines and stories, and it was a pleasure having fun with Judy. I don't ever think of having worked with Judy. It was fun.
She was a wonderful person, and she was a very happy person, really. Basically, Judy was a happy person.
And that was what Judy showed the world.
Judy stated that she never knew what she wanted to do. And so I think that she learned to provide what other people needed from her. I think that she really was never prepared for the MGM life that she was put into when she was 13. And again, she was not allowed to have her teenage years.
Judy's later opinions about her time at MGM are particularly revealing.
I've never been to a prom. I've never, we went to school on the lot. And in those days, you worked 6 days a week. And Mickey Rooney and I, for instance, would work sometimes 72 hours at a time.
Could it be that the working conditions at MGM were largely the cause of her early habit? To sustain the long hours at a stretch and to keep both her mother and MGM happy, she took what the studio doctors prescribed: uppers, amphetamines, speed. The little miracles of the pharmaceutical age.
She was given the amphetamines to keep her energy levels up, and then she was given the barbiturates to help her sleep. Then the next morning she'd need the speed again to keep her going. So that's very hard on people's physiology. They didn't understand the effects of speed.
They just knew that, hey, the barbiturates help people sleep, amphetamines help wake people up, and this is a miracle. This is wonderful.
By the time Judy Garland was 15 years old, she was a drug addict. She didn't know it, and neither did anybody else.
At 16, almost by accident, she landed the role that would make her one of the biggest stars at MGM. In 1938, MGM bought the rights to The Wizard of Oz. But Judy Garland wasn't even on the studio wish list for the lead part. The first choices were Shirley Temple or Deanna Durbin. Both were unavailable. Although Judy landed the role of Dorothy, she always knew she wasn't the studio's preference. Her mother, however, was delighted with the $500 a week salary. The MGM fantasy machine quickly went into reverse. Instead of turning 17-year-old Judy into a sex symbol, it transformed her into a 12-year-old girl by binding her breasts and braiding her hair.
I took her to the premiere of The Wizard of Oz, and she started to cry because people were laughing at it in the wrong places. And I said, honey, don't worry, everything will work out. And it did.